A new exclusive report from CBS News. Sources telling us that dozens of U.S. service members were seriously injured in an attack on a tactical operations center in Kuwait on March 1st. The operations center is located across the Persian Gulf from Iran. Now, sources tell us that wounds including burns, brain trauma, shrapnel wounds, and one service member may even require a limb amputation. Several service members are still in the hospital being treated for their injuries. Now, 6 troops were killed in that attack. Defense officials initially avoided revealing the number of injured. The Pentagon tries to notify families first in an effort to prevent them from learning about the injuries through the press. Now, joining us now is the former commander of U.S. CENTCOM and military fellow at the Middle East Institute, General Joseph Votel. General, a pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much for taking the time. You have extensive experience with conflicts over the world. Hearing more about this attack on the Tactical Operations Center, I'm curious, what can you tell us about compounds like these, and are they more vulnerable to attacks?
Yeah, thank you. It's good to be with you. And first and foremost, my sympathy goes out to the families and the units that lost these great American soldiers here, and we wish them the best as they deal with this immense loss here. So, really across the Middle East, we have a variety of military installations, and where this took place in Kuwait, we have 4 major installations where we find U.S. troops. They all perform different functions. The one where these soldiers were was a logistics hub that is used to support our military operations across the region, a very critical location for us. And so you have a concentration of troops in this particular area, and these are not unknown locations. They're generally well-established locations, so it's not difficult to target. And whether Iran was specifically targeting this location or not, I think is to be determined, but you can feel fairly confident that if you send a drone or a missile in this direction and it gets through, it's likely to hit something and do some damage. So, we have that situation. We have a lot of attack surface, as we kind of refer to it, across the Middle East, and we try to protect those with a whole variety of systems that we have. Some larger systems like our Patriot or THAAD, and some smaller systems that we use to protect our soldiers and our installations and our other interests across the Middle East.
General Votel, I know your expertise lies in military strategy, but I just want to get your take on this. We led our newscast today with reports that the FBI is warning law enforcement in California about a potential surprise attack with drones from Iran. The president says he's not worried about an attack on U.S. soil, but I'm just curious, what do you think? Do you think the war could actually hit our shores?
Well, we've always taken these kinds of threats very, very seriously. So we certainly don't want to panic the population about these things, but we do want people to be observant. I think the good thing for our citizens to appreciate is, really across our country, in our major urban areas, we have joint, counter-terrorist task forces, largely organized by the FBI, but including a whole series of agencies that come together to share information, so that when we get at the state, local, state, federal level, to share information, so we have credible threats, we can get the word out and we can take action to prevent them from having an impact. We should always be concerned about these types of things, especially in a time of conflict, but we do have measures in place, and warning the public is a big part of that.
Iran now says it's going to be targeting banks in the Middle East. What's the strategy here in announcing attack plans, and how does that play into the U.S. military strategy? Do you take these types of threats at face value?
Well, I think we should always have an element of respect for what our adversaries can do. But I think in this case, what Iran is trying to do is they're trying to send a message that not just our U.S. military capability is at risk here, but really any U.S. interests across the Middle East. And I think this is an attempt to kind of cause some panic, raise some concern, among the U.S. population and footprint that resides across the Middle East. So these are generally soft targets. They're sometimes vulnerable, and so again, it's designed to send a message to us and from their perspective, impress upon us that they can reach out and strike us wherever we are.
You know, when you hear about the intention of attacks on banks and the conflict that's happening right now in the Strait of Hormuz, when you think about how long you believe this war will go on, the president has indicated that possibly it's almost done. Pete Hegseth has been kind of vague about how long he believes this war will go on. When you look at the daily updates of what's happening overseas, how long do you think this conflict will last?
Well, I think as the president says, it'll go on until he makes the determination that we've achieved our objectives, and that is largely, from a military standpoint, that Iran cannot continue to employ their their military capabilities beyond their borders to threaten Americans or threaten our interests in the region or threaten our partners. So I think what's happening right now is CENTCOM is going right down the target list here, and they're going to continue to conduct strikes and eliminate these capabilities, eliminate the remnants of these capabilities that exist until such a point that the president says we've done enough and we need to move on to something else, like making sure the Straits of Hormuz stay open or something along those lines. So this could be days, it could be weeks before we're at that stage.
This is really the first war in the age of artificial intelligence. There's been a lot of back and forth about how the U.S. military should or should not be using AI. From your perspective, where could AI be the most helpful and where could it be the most harmful?
Yeah, thanks. I think it's a great question. And, certainly this is a cutting edge technology. It's going to make a big difference, not just for the military, but really in our whole world. One of the things that AI can do is help us parse through the immense amounts of information that we collect and help us make sense of that. Our sensors, our intelligence community, what our organizations gather out there, we gather tons and tons of information, and it's more than an analyst or a group of analysts can get through in a timely manner. So artificial intelligence can help us go through that, help us understand what we're seeing, and help direct us towards the most important aspects. So it can help with things like target identification and prioritization. It helps commanders move through a lot of information. It helps with decision support. It can help us in areas, with our cyber warfare, with some of our psychological operations. And it certainly can help with our logistics. We've talked a lot about munitions. So understanding how we're best using the munitions that we have available to us and help us understand that are ways that artificial intelligence can really make a difference. And I'm sure is doing that in the case of this particular war. I think there are some limitations to this. Certainly, our approach is to keep a human in the loop, and I think that's the proper way of doing this. These are developing technologies, so it does require some validation, some certification from humans who are looking at this and looking at the assessments that are coming from artificial intelligence and making the determination of whether that makes some sense. So there are some limitations to what artificial intelligence can do to us, but frankly, from my perspective, there's a lot more good that can be done if we can get it leveraged in the right ways.
Due to the heavy use, though, of this really advanced technology, General, I'm curious if you're looking to our two other biggest adversaries, China and Russia, and their role in this conflict. Are you looking to see what they're going to do next after this?
Well, certainly. There's been a lot of stories about Russia here. Not only sharing targeting data, but now sharing tactics, techniques, and procedures from their experience in Ukraine with the Iranians to, conceivably improve their drone operations. So we certainly have to pay attention to that and where we can push back on it and make sure we're taking the measures to protect our capabilities and certainly protect our forces. China obviously is big in this. They're a huge recipient of Iranian oil, so they're being directly impacted on this, and we will have to pay attention to see what their responses are. It's not likely to be a military response, but there may be some other things that they are doing as well. So what happens in the Middle East doesn't stay there. It has a global impact, and we're certainly seeing that now. Just looking at the energy sector and the shutdown or the slowdown of movement through the Straits of Hormuz and what that does for 20% of the global natural gas exports and about 20 million barrels of oil and oil products that move through the strait every day. It's going to have an impact, and so big players like Russia and China are going to be impacted by it.
General Joseph Votel, thank you so much.
Good to be with you.